Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the second week of Open Preps. This is week 2 of my prep that leads to the CrossFit Open. If you guys haven't seen week 1, I will link it up here so that you can go and watch that and you know exactly what is going on. Now, week 2, I got my period. So I started my menstrual cycle. So I thought that I would capitalize on this opportunity and kind of talk to you guys about what I do in and around my period to make sure that my strength training, my CrossFit training and everything else in between stays tip-top form, and how I kind of adjust my program or what I do to kind of make sure that I'm meeting the right parameters or keeping on track to hit my goals. So first and foremost, I think the most important thing to say is that every single person's menstrual cycle is different. Every single person's menstrual cycle is individual, and basing any of your own symptoms on somebody else's or doing what I do may not work for you. So the most important thing, whilst I'm sharing this to kind of help you guys in a way that I hope is helpful, just know that you are not me and I am not you guys, so you may need to adapt things slightly differently than I do, but I'm kind of just going to give you like rough guidelines as to how I do it to see whether that might help you. But just bear in mind, everybody's individual, everybody will go through things differently than I do. It is also super important to note that ultimately there are so many other factors that can influence your menstrual cycle, as well as just generally influence your training. So just bear that in mind whenever you're considering your training in any kind of regard. Just think about what you have gone through over the past week, month, see why certain things are happening and see whether you can like piece together things instead of like directly jumping towards, oh, it's my menstrual cycle. It might not actually be. You might be a bit more stressed. You might be more tired. You probably didn't sleep well. You're just more tired from the volume of training that you've had. Just remember to take into consideration lots of different things before you jump to one single conclusion. The most important thing is for you personally set your own personal parameters that you can kind of give yourself to know when and where you are in your training, when and where you are in your menstrual cycle, and kind of adapt and adjust from there. Now, I'm not going to try and confuse anyone, especially myself, by blinding us all with science, like talking about the follicular phase, the luteal phase, ovulation phase, because in my opinion, whilst those things are important, they're not as important as we have been placing emphasis on within our training. What I will say about what people do say about those phases is that the general rule of thumb that people tend to say is that you are strongest in your ovulation phase and weakest during your menstruation phase, i.e. you are strongest 14 to 15 days after your period begins and weakest on the first day or in and around the first day of your menstrual cycle. And because of these facts, people try to then cycle sync, which is where they create programs around your cycle to make sure that the most volume and the most high intensity is around your ovulation, whereas they try to minimize the volume and intensity around your menstruation. So in simple terms, they just change your training in and around your cycle. However, for me personally, and over my time doing weightlifting and CrossFit, I think that it's a mistake to try and change your program month on month, because things are so individualized and things fluctuate so much that it's impossible to know whether month on month, week on week, you're going to be feeling exactly the same as you were last month. I think that you would miss out on particularly important moments within your training if you were just to stick to a standard routine. And personally, I think it's a mistake just to predetermine that you are going to be feeling a certain way on each day when you might actually be feeling fine, but you've convinced yourself that you're not feeling fine because you think that you're not feeling fine, you know? So personally, my symptoms include backache, back pain, bloating, fatigue, and general just feeling a little bit shit. And to be honest, this is like the prime time of the month where I tend to use every excuse under the sun that I don't want to go to the gym, to be completely honest. So this week, obviously this is week 2 of the open prep. This week, I did not want to train. Monday through Friday, didn't want to go to the gym. I found it really, really hard to motivate myself, and the training was a lot more like physically and mentally demanding for me to do. But your gal did it anyways. I have a general rule with training, especially having come from weightlifting, that as a general rule of thumb, when things feel good, you go up. Irrespective of where you are in your cycle, irrespective of like where you are in your training cycle, menstruation cycle, whatever it is, if it feels good, go up. If it doesn't feel good, don't go up. Hit the lower percentages, focus on moving well, focus on moving comfortably, and that is good. That is enough. And not every single day has to be a max out. That is the general rule that I will follow, especially during my menstruation. If I'm feeling a bit rubbish, I will hit those low percentages and focus on my moving technique. However, if I'm still feeling good and if it doesn't feel heavy, then I will go up. That's a general rule that we should all follow. I think that when we're too rigid with our programming, sometimes it can be to our own detriment. Finally, the last thing to talk about is physical discomfort. Now, I am the first person to say it's so hard to push past back pain, backache, cramps, all that sort of good stuff. But sometimes physical discomfort doesn't actually mean that you won't be able to perform. And more often than not, achieving any kind of movement is actually going to be beneficial to you and will actually alleviate the symptoms of pain. So if you can, whilst you're on your menstrual cycle, just get moving, just do something. Often you will be able to achieve a lot more than you think you can just because you've started, and then the pain will go away. Now, obviously, this is individual to each person. So some people will suffer from really bad symptoms and really bad side effects, and then they might not be able to do this, but I'm talking on an individual level. This is what I do. Cannot emphasize that enough. Now, I think an important thing to note is that having a healthy lifestyle can contribute to alleviating any symptoms that you do have from your menstrual cycle. So having a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, and having like movement within your life, like day to day, not just sitting down all day, will help alleviate symptoms. So if you do find yourself having really bad symptoms, do just look at your life and see whether you're doing enough or doing something that could be alleviating those symptoms more than what you are already doing. I.e., are you eating well? Are you drinking enough? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you resting enough? Are you really stressed? Basic things that can help our day-to-day be better and alleviate those symptoms. So as I said, this was week 2 of the open prep. So to relate it back to that was a long shenanigan about menstrual cycles, but I felt like I had to share it. This week for me, the first half of the week, Monday through Friday, was a little bit of a write-off. I trained, obviously, and I tried to push past where I could, obviously. However, I didn't achieve anything spectacular. I hit my percentages, I did the work. Some WODs actually felt really good because once I got moving, I was fine. Some WODs didn't feel so good, which is just the way it is. However, I managed to get the work done and actually hit a very consistent week of training and was super happy with what I had done. I didn't do anything amazing Monday through Friday, like it was just training, and sometimes training is just like that. Put the work in, try and get your fitness up, and that is it. However, when Saturday came around, I was actually super grateful that I had taken some time to kind of like listen to my body, figure out what it needed, be a little bit more relaxed, take my time, because Saturday was a magical day. So those of you who have followed me for a long time know that week on week for the past, I don't even know how long, I have been trying to power snatch 70 kilos again. Now my previous best was 73, which I did over a year ago, super long time ago. This Saturday, I managed to power snatch 75 kilos. Which is a huge feat for me, and it also was probably one of the nicest snatches I've ever done, if I do say so myself. Technical work paying off, and I was absolutely elated to finally be able to hit 75 because I was warming up and I actually felt like fine. As I was saying earlier, like I didn't actually have any expectations on myself because I was menstruating. I was like, oh, probably gonna be rubbish, probably not gonna feel good. And I warmed up with some dip snatches, and then first it felt heavy off the floor. Once I'd warmed up and done my dip snatches and went on to my normal snatches, I actually felt like good, and it didn't feel heavy off the floor. So I did my normal jumps, went all the way up to like 66, and then that's when I knew, because I went 66, 68, 70, 72, 75. And 75 was great, if I do say so myself. So that kind of points out exactly what I was saying before. Obviously, if I had made my program so that my menstruation cycle was linked to my program, I would have never done that because I would have just expected myself to not be able to do it because I was menstruating. This isn't right, but because I was menstruating. However, because I listened to my body and I took time to kind of like understand what I was going through and took the week to listen to when I was not feeling good, and then I listened to when I was feeling good, and then something good happened. So whilst that obviously isn't the most ideal 2-week, like second week of the prep phase, this does just happen. As a woman, these things happen, and it's important that we talk about it and talk about how we can adapt or how we can overcome them. I now feel more ready than ever to keep going, and I'm actually really happy that I did get the training in that I did get, and that we moved the way that we did move, and we continue to be better and stronger and power snatch 75. So take your time to figure out exactly what works for you. I do keep a menstrual cycle like diary where I know exactly what day I'm on, how many days I've got until I'm gonna be on my period. That way I kind of note like how I'm feeling, just to kind of keep track. So this was all basically just to say that you don't have to set in stone like all the guidelines for when you're on your menstrual cycle. Each person is individual and you should approach it that way. And there are a lot of times when you won't feel good, but it might not always be when you're menstruating. You might just feel good when just general life, because it's all part and parcel of training, and you've just got to embrace it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up as well as subscribe to my channel. I'll catch you guys in the next video, which will be uploaded in 3 days.